Okay, so I haven't... Okay. This is a nightmare I may not be ready to live through.
I started getting crushes on boys.
Real embarrassed about this.
My mouth gets the best of me pretty much all the time.
Okay, I'm just like, how do... Okay. All right.
There we go.
Hey everybody, welcome to We Still Like You, the embarrassing storytelling show. I'm Jesse Batend. On this episode, we're stepping out back and getting physical. We've got 3 stories of fighting, and this week, people get punched over pool, garden plants, fashion choices, even nothing at all. Our first story comes to you from comedian and podcaster Jackie Kashian. Jackie's stand-up has been featured everywhere from Conan O'Brien to At Midnight. She's appeared in Netflix's original series Lady Dynamite and IFC's Maron. She also hosts the Dork podcast on iTunes. We're extremely excited to have her on the show. From the Orlando Comedy Festival, here's Jackie Kashian.
My mother died when I was 7. I didn't kill her. It wasn't my fault. You guys might be familiar with the Irish goodbye when your mom kills herself in a drunk driving accident. The famous Irish goodbye. We were animals. We were animals before her death, and then afterwards there was order, and no one was. We were happy. You know, as one of my older brothers has always said, he said, we wanted to be sad Mom died, but the next day there was milk and bread in the house. So, my dad remarries, and my stepmother, a lot of order. She was great loss to the Austrian army, and charts and graphs and French corners on the beds, a lot of chanting. But the thing is I had so much bottled rage when I was 8. I mean, if I were a child today, of course, they would junk me up on any number of pills, and then I would turn 18 and start smoking pot and drinking, and then I'd go mad, like the rest of you did. So, it was pre-Adderall, you guys, pre all the drugs, no Prozac, nothing like that. So essentially, it was just temper tantrums and then sitting around. I had a lot of temper tantrums at school because I wasn't allowed to have them at the house anymore. And I could wander the streets of the tiny town in Wisconsin where I'm from a small factory town. The only rule was you just had to be home. You didn't care where you were. You had to be home at 5, and then at 6:30, after you were either in charge of sweeping and washing or wiping everything down and drying, I would do laps around this town. And then, I was 10, I was over by the library, and I went to Bernie's drugstore, and I shoplifted for the first time at Bernie's drugstore, and I got caught by Mrs. Bernie. And here's the thing about Mrs. Bernie. You didn't want to fuck with Mrs. Bernie because the only murder in South Milwaukee history was Mrs. Bernie killed her husband and put him in a trash can. So it's the only murder. So I stole a chunky candy bar. You remember a square I didn't even like it. It was a terrible milk chocolate. I stole it. And she caught me. She hand on the shoulder, and she said to me, "Young man, come with me." She asked me what my name was, and I told her it was Mark Scudder. Mark Scudder had just beat me up in grade school about 2 weeks earlier. And him, John Pribble, and Brian Anderson pushed me into the creek. And yeah, I said crick. Do you know why? Because it wasn't nothing but a crick. So, and weirdly enough, Mark Scudder was the only one who ever apologized. But I went right to Mark Scudder, and I had to fill out a piece of paper. Mrs. Bernie had a documentation that she needed a 9-year-old to fill out. What else? And one of the questions is, what else have you stolen from Bernie's? And I had not stolen anything, but she was like, I don't believe you. So I started making up shit, things that I wanted to steal. I was like, oh, there was that toy gun I wanted, and there was this other thing, and blah, blah. And then the cop came, and he was and I started having James Cagney visions of I was never gonna crack, I was gonna be in a room with a single light, and I'd be like, no, and my parents they would never see me again because I would just rot in the South Milwaukee jail. As he's taking me out, I start to believe that this isn't gonna work. You know, I'm like, oh my God, they're going to find out I'm not Mark Scudder. They're going to find out I'm not a boy. And then they're going to find out that I'm not Mark Scudder. And I'm just sort of thinking. And all of a sudden our neighbor, Mrs. Knievers, walks by. And she goes, "Hi, Jackie." And I swear, there's no way the cop even heard her. But I just melted into a puddle and just started, "I'm not really a boy, I'm a girl, my name isn't Mark, it's Jackie. I'm really sorry, I'll never do it again." If I could go back in time and see the laughter that was not happening, what was trying to happen between Mrs. Knievers and the cop, because here's what happened is, I'm sure they just looked at each other and Mrs. Knievers said, "I'll take her." And I got away with it because I'm a tiny white child. Anyway, so Mrs. Knievers never narked on me, and I went on to shoplift again. Anyway, horrible story. Like in 3rd grade, I kicked in one of those glass doors. I mean, I literally would have these weird rage-filled, just acting up over and over and over again. And here's the time when I got my comeuppance. So I was about 12 years old. I was in 7th grade, and I was just full of rage. And it was after school, junior high. I'm walking home. I end up by my old high school, and I'm just, for some reason, just sitting there not wanting to go home for 1,000 hours, like you do when you're 12, 13 years old, and you don't want to go home. And I'm just standing there, and there's 2 little girls playing. They're like 8, 9 years old, and they're all the hours playing. And I'm like, I'm going to beat one of those little girls up. I'm 12. I want to beat a little girl up. I've never initiated a fight. I've been jackasses in retail situations ever since. That's where I like to bring it now. Anyway, so I picked a fight with this little girl, and I was 12 and she was 8. And this is the shortest story in the world, by the way, because here's the only good thing that happened. That 8-year-old beat the shit out of me. And there is some justice in the world, because I deserved. Because I just picked a fight with this little girl, and I was not a large 12-year-old, but she was like, "What the fuck is happening?" And she lost her shit and beat the fuck out of me. Thank you very much.
Jackie Kashian. For more of Jackie's comedy, check out her stand-up special, This Will Make an Excellent Horcrux, and be sure to subscribe to her podcasts, The Dork Forest and The Jackie and Laurie Show. Coming up next, what Kyle Scanlan starts, fate finishes. Welcome back to We Still Like You. Unlike some of the other storytellers in this episode, Kyle Scanlan doesn't have a problem with fighting. Unfortunately, neither did Clint Sellers, the shirtless All-American linebacker currently bench pressing his furniture. This story was told at We Still Like You's annual trolley show, which is exactly what it sounds like. Once a year, we do a special version of the live show on a moving trolley in Chicago. This year, comedian Kyle Scanlan told a story about finally meeting his fight guy match.
Basically, my dad is a huge cheapskate, and I'm kind of a dipshit. So I ended up going to junior college. And at the time where I was going to junior college, there was like a real estate scandal. And so like 40 houses got foreclosed on, and they were being sold like dirt cheap. So my dad saw this and was like, "Oh yeah, I'll put my dumb son in one of those things. It'll be fine." And so he bought this house that was like $40,000. Like that's like probably what 3 of you pay in rent combined a year. It was like decked out for college kids though. Like we had a basketball hoop in our backyard. We had a pool table from a farm. I didn't know they made 11-foot pool tables, but they do. And so, like, we never got DUIs in college because we never left this house. Like, we didn't go anywhere else. So I'm having this party, and this guy shows up, and and right now this place is in Mattoon, Illinois. The house is in Mattoon, Illinois. If you don't know anything about that, it's the meth capital of Illinois. Yeah, honking action for it. It's worthy of it. So it's in Mattoon, Illinois. A buddy of mine from Charleston, which is about 10 minutes away, he brings his friends, and his friends are the fucking worst people you've ever met in your life. They're monsters. And the lead one of them, his name is Clint Sellers. I'm going to repeat his name so that you can Google it after this. Clint Sellers. Don't bleep it either. Leave it in. Fuck that. Fuck that. Fuck this dude. So this dude comes to my house, and we're having a party. Everybody's having a nice time, and he just decides, what a great time to take my shirt off. Why not take my shirt off? And he's kind of being like shitty to a bunch of dudes that I know at the party. And like grabbing girls' asses and stuff, like real class act, like real gentleman. And so my roommate, who is the most passive person I've ever met in my life, he comes up to me and he's like, dude, what are we gonna do about this guy? Like, I don't know what to do about this guy. And I was like, well, maybe I'll just go down there and say something to him. And so I go down there, and he is currently, and by the way, this dude is my height, he's 6'2", but he weighs about 50 to 60 pounds more than me, and it's all muscle. Like, it looks like he's never had a carb in his life. Like, it's terrifying. And so he's just there, and he's lifting the pool table, just up and down like this. Just lifting it up and down without a shirt on, and just kind of like weirdly trying to get people to pay attention to him. This dude, I find out later, was an All-American linebacker for Eastern Illinois University. And so he's just, like, you can imagine, he's just a huge dude. And so I go up to him, and I can take some blame here. I was being a little bit of an asshole. And he has his shirt off, and he's lifting my pool table up and down. And I go up to him, and I say, hey, man, can you put your shirt on? And he was like, no. And I was like, well, it's my house, I'd hate for you to catch a cold here. I feel responsible. Which, looking back, I'm pretty proud of my 19-year-old self for saying that. Like, what a cool little smartass I was. He didn't like that, though. He didn't like that at all. And it gets to be like kind of confrontational, and he started, you don't fuck me. You gonna fucking make me put a shirt on? You gonna make me put a shirt on? And I was like, all right, whatever. And I was like, well, why don't you just fucking leave, man? Why don't you just leave? And I've always had this idea with fights where a lot of people are like, fighting is a last resort. For me, fighting is always, if you started, let's just fight, because I'm a stupid redneck. I will fight. I don't give a shit. I don't know why I'm okay with fighting, but I think fighting is fine. Like, I was like, whatever. So I say, why don't you fucking leave? And he goes, you gonna make me fucking leave? And I was like, yeah, I'm gonna make you leave. And he was like, well, fucking make me then. And I remembered something that my best friend told me a long time ago about fights, and that is that if someone tries to fuck with you, just act like an insane person, and they'll probably run away. So this dude tells me, fucking make me, and I just screamed, okay, I will! And I stormed upstairs to my bedroom, grabbed a baseball bat, and come back downstairs. And J-Mo, will you hold my beer for me?
Oh boy.
And I grabbed the baseball bat, I come back downstairs, and I fucking point the bat at him, and I said, now fucking leave. And he was like, I don't know if you've ever pulled a bat on someone and they didn't give a shit. But that is terrifying. Because I couldn't back up what I was putting out there. I was just trying to fucking be crazy. Like, that's all I was doing. And he was like one of those people in the guns where when they put the gun up to their head in the movie, he's like, fucking pull the trigger, do it, like, you know, like, just fucking, like, nutcase. So me and this dude are fucking screaming at each other. Again, he is shirtless, I have a bat. And at this point, I know I'm not gonna win the fight, so I start doing this thing where I'm gonna, like, circle around my friends to try and get them in the middle of it, to, like, break up the fight. And my friends are just so scared that they're like, fuck this, I'm not doing anything. So we're kind of just screaming at each other, and he's coming towards me, and I'm like, oh fuck, I don't know what to do. And I look over, because when shit goes down like this, you kind of find out who your real friends are. Like, you kind of find out. And my passive roommate that I was talking about earlier, this dude is 130 pounds, has smoked a pack of Camel Lights since he was 11 years old. Like, this dude has never hurt anyone in his life, and I look over, and he's taking his shoe off, and taking his sock off, and starts putting poo balls in his sock. Oh, shit. And then he just winks at me, and he's like, I gotcha. So we got all of the weapons now. We have all the weapons, we have bats, we have socks full of poo balls. And so we start screaming at we're screaming at each other, and people, his friends are like, leave him alone, just leave him alone. This dude is barred from every bar in Charleston for fighting. You don't want to do this. And I'm like, I can't stop now! We get upstairs, we're still screaming at each other, and eventually, like, he leaves. Like, I was like, oh man, that was fucking crazy. We're like, yeah, that was nuts. We start looking into this dude. We find out that he's a football player at the university, that he's an All-American linebacker. And we're like, oh man, that's crazy. We start going to bars. We start seeing his name behind the counter, barred, Clint Sellers. Barred, Clint Sellers. Every fucking bar you go to in Charleston. And we start, like, my buddies start joking, like, oh, we're gonna get you a jersey. We're gonna get you a jersey. We're gonna go to the first game. So opening kickoff comes the next season. They play their biggest game of the year against U of I. Opening kickoff. This dude gets paralyzed. Oh, shit. Not only did he get paralyzed, he lost his right arm. What? And I don't know if you've ever gotten texts like you got a baby, you just had a baby or something. Like something that people want to congratulate you on. That's the kind of text I got from everybody. And my buddy goes to the store, he comes back with a newspaper that just says, Sellers paralyzed on opening play. We fucking framed that shit and hung it up in our living room for the rest of the time we lived at that place. All right, I'm out.
Comedian Kyle Scanlan. Kyle is a producer of the Lincoln Lodge in Chicago, the nation's longest-running independent stand-up comedy show. He's also the creator of the satirical news site The Whiskey Journal. Coming up next, We Still Like You producer Dan Sheehan explains what it takes to make a nice boy bad. Welcome back to We Still Like You. This last story comes to you from our very own producer, Dan Sheehan. In this story, Dan talks about 3 times he threw up his grubby little meat paws, and how finally winning a fight felt different than he expected. From Chicago, here's Dan Sheehan.
I'm a bad man. Like, I'm not like a bad man, but I'm like a bad man. Like I'm not good at being masculine or male. My dad taught me, like, to process emotions correctly. That turned out to be, like, a terrible move on his part. Because, like, it turns out when you do that, everybody just makes fun of you forever. Like, oh, fuck you for not only crying when a dog dies in a movie. Like, yeah, sorry, I cry at normal times, too. Like, you know, when people die, or at the part of 21 Jump Street where you realize, like, what good friends they are. Friendship's important. You gotta value it. So I don't know, I've never been like super good at being masculine. Like I said, like I'm a man, I'm not a man. Like I don't punch stuff. I don't do anything cool like that. I don't know about cars or sports. And like there was always a part of me that thought that I was like above the idea of like the fight guy. Like, you know, the guy who it's like, whenever I see two dudes fighting outside a bar, I'm just like, this is like a nature documentary. Like when you see two gazelles who've had enough. Like that's what these two dudes are doing. It's like, well, he said he fucked my mom and I can't prove he didn't. Like it's crazy. And so like whenever I would see that, I would be like, nah, man, you're smarter than that. You're above that. There's a reason you don't act that way. And like it's underlined by a lot of my past. Like the very first time I got punched in the face, surprise, it's happened a couple. I'm a mouthy little boy. In 5th grade, I got punched in the face by a kid because I was standing too close to a pool table he was using. It was just like, I was right there, it was just like right in my face. And like, at the time, that wasn't even an option that was on the table. We were 11, like people weren't just like, all right, let's fight this out. Like my elbows barely work. Like that's crazy. That's not a time when people fight at 11, that's nuts. But he did it. He punched me right in the face, my nose started bleeding. And my mental rationale was like, I had heard through gossip from my parents that his parents used to put like a lock on the outside of his door for when he was like tantruming too hard. So I was like, whatever, he probably needs to work through some stuff. Like that's fine. If it needs to be my nose, that's okay. It's, you know, he's just doing what he needs to do. I don't know what to do with that sort of person though. Like when you're arguing with a person who's like a stranger who maybe said something shitty to like a friend or acquaintance, and then you realize that they're the sort of guy who's like ready to fight as an adult. Because like as an adult, a punch can kill you. We get frailer as we age. Like you can get punched in the head 1,000,000 times at 16, but like I've seen The Quiet Man. I know how it all goes down. All it takes is one punch to change a boxer's career, dude. What I'm saying is it's like you're getting a rule book and you're like, cool, the rules work this way. Hey, I think you might be wrong. And the guy just puts a gun on the table and you're like, cool, rule book. Does not matter. Rule book is not a big part of this conversation. The second time I dealt with a fight guy directly, I was in college and I had just joined a fraternity, which should come as a huge surprise because it came as one to me. I was surprised to be there. It was ZBT, the Jewish fraternity. I'm not Jewish, I'm not sure. Everyone's just like, how'd you get here? I'm like, I don't know, but I'm going to spend the rest of my life teaching people your secret handshake. Like, that's what I'm going to do. So we had like a bunch of alumni coming in, so they made us all like dig up the garden and redo the garden. And so there were like tulips everywhere, and like we had really made it look pretty nice given the fact that the house we lived in used to be a mental asylum. Like, that's a real thing that happened in Columbia, Missouri in my life. Different story for a different day. So one night I'm sitting out there, I'd been drinking, I was like smoking a cigarette, it was like 3 a.m, and some girl just comes up and she's like looking at the tulips, like in that way that like, you know she wants a tulip. You know, she's like, tulips are nature, and nature is all of ours, so. And she like keeps kind of like slow stepping towards these tulips while I'm just like sitting out there smoking a cigarette, just like I know how this is gonna play out. I'm either gonna have to chase a person like a rabbit, or I'm gonna let her pluck a tulip and then someone's gonna make fun of my garden symmetry. You know, like some dude from St. Louis is gonna come in and be like, there's one tulip missing. This is fucked up. We're never funding you again. That was my worry, and so I was like, hey, you can't have that. And it turns out there had been like this dude like with her peripherally. I'm not even sure if they were together, but they were after this. Like he demonstrated his strength so beautifully that then they became a couple. Like this dude comes up to me, he's like, you're gonna give her a tulip, man. First off, stupidest fucking argument in the entire world. We are arguing about a garden plant that we bought at Home Depot. Nothing that comes from Home Depot should go home and start an argument. That's crazy. And so this dude, I just like reiterate to him, like, listen, man, like they just made us spend the whole day digging these things up. Like we just need them to exist for like a day. Can you just be okay with this for a day? And he just shoves me. And I panic, as Shians are prone to do. We've survived this long, just going limp and kind of skittering away. I kind of basically just gave in 100%. I was like, whatever, take what you need, I'm done. I survived today. I'm gonna keep living. this is not the end of my story. It does not end in a tulip argument. That would be insane. That'd be a horrible way for me to die. So, like, he takes his tulip, and that's the first moment I remember really feeling, like, I don't know, like, murder rage, I think is the term. You know, like, murder rage. Like, I think it's just testosterone. I think I just don't have a lot of experiences where testosterone has flared up. Because, like, I've never hit on a girl like this at a party, you know? So it's not a thing I've ever done, so I've never had, like, that part of me really fire off at this level before. But at that moment, I knew. I was like, I need to tear this guy in half! Like, that's what I needed to do, but he was already gone. He had claimed his new stranger wife, and they were going to be happy together. But all I could dream of was her sobbing over his grave, putting down tulips that she actually bought. Like, that's... All I could think of was, like, it'd be so cool if this dude was dead. And I was like, whatever, that's not a problem, I'm sure. That's not an issue at all. I don't know, I feel like it's weird, because, like, those people exist and they go through life without consequences largely. Like, that guy went home and he got his tulip, and he's probably out there somewhere not even remembering that night right now. And I think it's just because we say shit to young, terrible dudes like boys will be boys, which is a phrase that means nothing. It just says shitty people will continue to be shitty and I choose to take no action. Like, that's what that phrase is. It's crazy. And then we're all like, why does Donald Trump exist? Why are cops killing people? It's because you take them by the shoulders at 8 and say, consequences aren't a thing! It's fucking insanity. Cause, effect, shitty kid, Donald Trump. Like, I guarantee you Donald Trump pushed over 100 kids on the playground. It's crazy. But yeah, the actual story here comes later in my college career. I was just leaving college and we were having this, like, big party. It was one of the last nights me and all my friends were gonna be together in the same place. And you get this, like, weird feeling where you're just like, oh man, like, life is real and shit's gonna happen. And there was, like, this dude at the party who really just ruined that sweet, sweet college vibe for all of us. My friend Nora was, like, one of the nicest people. She's alive. She doesn't get murdered in this story. Gonna preface that up top. She's just, like, one of the nicest people I've ever met, and she, like, will find wayward folks and be like, you look like you want to hang out with some nice people. Come with us. And so she found this dude at a bar who then spent his whole night just being shitty to everybody. Like, any insult you could find, he was slinging it out. And the end of the night had come, and he was blackout drunk. And I was also pretty drunk. And my friend Nora was there, and my friend Evan was there. And we're all sitting around a table for some reason indulging this strange nightmare man who's just, like, saying shitty things to everyone and occasionally just going back like this, like he's gonna punch, but he's, like, too far to punch. And so eventually he, like, goes and he just, like, he doesn't even throw, like, a real punch. Like, it's just all arm. Like, he's just, like, trying to throw his own fist. But for some reason, I react. Like, this is my moment, like, the murder rage is like, today's the day, Sheehan! Like, go, go, go! And so I throw my arm into this dude's neck, and I throw him up against the wall, and I punch him once, twice, 3 times. This isn't like an action movie where someone's like, stop, you're killing him! Like, he didn't even have a bloody nose. He's fine. He's totally fine. I, like, grab him by the scruff of his shirt and I throw him down, like, the first, like, 3 stairs of this deck. I'm just like, get the fuck out! And he goes. And I can't stress enough how much in this moment I felt like a horse looks. Like, I felt beautiful and powerful and majestic and without pain. Like, I had done it. But in that moment, I realized that my whole life I'd been full of shit. I wasn't a pacifist. I wasn't above fighting. I was just bad at it. I was just bad at this thing. I wasn't like some sort of new form of man that's gonna change masculinity. I was just a dude who probably can't throw a very good punch. And, like, that's fine. That's a cool thing to be, I guess. But then I found out literally 30 minutes later because a couple other dudes walked up and we were talking about this complete stranger who'd ruined our evening. They're like, oh yeah, we know that guy. He's kind of like, he like dropped out a couple of years ago and he's like really depressed and he like kind of goes to parties like looking to start fights. Yeah, so I sevened him. I just Kevin Spacey'd at the end of Sevened a person. He was just like, he showed me my wife's head in a box and he was like, you're gonna kill me. I was like, I'm gonna kill you! And that was the end of the movie. That's been me.
And that does it for this episode of We Still Like You. I certainly hope you still do. If so, leave us a little review on iTunes. Maybe tell your friends. It really helps us out a lot. As always, if you'd like to tell a story at a We Still Like You live show, send us a synopsis to westilllikeyu@gmail.com. I'm Jesse Batend. Until next time, thanks for listening.
That story told from a guy who, when I get hit on at bars, Dan goes, "Hey, that's my wife." That's his go-to move. All right, does anybody have any questions?
We Still Like You is produced by Dan Sheehan, Danny Gallegos, Tyler Snodgrass, Shannon Null, and J. Michael Osborne, who is also our resident live artist. In Los Angeles, it is produced by Andy Sell.
The podcast is produced by Jesse Pretend, engineered by Jesse Pretend and Sam Haas. Our theme song is Specific People by Jake Tobin. Big thanks to all the people who've housed our live shows at various undisclosed locations around Chicago, and to you, the listener, for being there.
If you'd like to know more about where you can watch We Still Like You or submit to be on We Still Like You, please check out our website, which is westilllikeyou.com, and also you can find us on Facebook.
Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.